Welcome to Knowledgeable Aging. I'm your host, Jason Kotar. Joining us today to talk about advanced care planning, document, share, and review is M. Jane Markley. Jane, president of M. Jane Markley Consulting, is a consultant and healthcare ethics advisor with 35 plus years experience in healthcare. She works with individuals, families, organizations, ethics committees, and healthcare systems to help them understand the importance of advanced care planning for themselves, their loved ones, and their members. A retired Navy nurse, she is board certified in healthcare management, a patient advocate, and a former hospital ethics committee chair. She trains healthcare advocates, speaks nationally and internationally, and works one-on-one with individuals and their families to complete their advanced directives. How are you doing today, Jane?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you for joining us. This is our sixth and final time together. Yep. So just so much information. I'm looking forward to wrapping everything up today, talking about advanced care planning, document, share, and review. But before we get started, Jane, for those that are joining us for the live webinar, if you have any questions, type your questions in to the toolbar on the right-hand side, and time permitting, we will do everything in our power to get your questions answered. So Jane, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jason. I do appreciate the opportunity to again present for the Knowledgeable Aging webinar series. As Jason said, this is the sixth and final program. Today, I will be addressing how to finalize your healthcare directive to ensure that it meets all the legal requirements of your state and that it is available when needed. Once you have done all the previous work in preparation for this, this is the culmination of your advanced care planning and makes your wishes known and available to people when there is a need. I encourage you to jot down your thoughts and questions, put them in the chat area so that I can address specific issues. I have intentionally left some time available in the 30 minutes so that you can get your questions out and get them answered. So make sure that you document them as you go. As I promised, here is the disclaimer. These views are all mine. Knowledgeable Aging is only supporting me in presenting these, and there is nothing here that is medical advice or financial advice. It is purely a methodology to complete your advanced directives. So, as I said, finalization is where we're at. Once you're done with the thinking, the planning, the sharing, the questionings, and you have a pretty good idea of what you want or don't want regarding your health care, it's time to finalize your plan. You've talked about what matters most to you and the kind of care that you desire. You've included the key people that are important in your life, the people who will be supporting you through the process, whether it's your attorney, your faith-based organization's lead, it's your physician. You've determined what you do and do not want, and have learned hopefully more about the options available to you by talking to your physician. You've hopefully identified 3 people to be your healthcare agent. 3 is a good number. 4 is certainly reasonable. If there's only 2 that you come up with, that's probably okay, but you really do need to have more than 1 person identified. And as I repeat repeatedly, is that it's important that you realize that it's in a precedence order. It's not a group gaggle to make a decision for you. It's 1 person making that decision. They certainly can talk with others and get feedback from others, but it's a list of 3 people. The first one is the first one on the list, and that's the person who will be your healthcare agent when the time comes. So once you're prepared to finalize what you want, and it's important that you realize that this is a changeable document. You do not have to think that this is a once and done, okay? There are changes that happen in your life. There are changes that will happen in your healthcare, and it may cause you to want to redo the document. So this is not I can't go change it anymore. It's important that you remember that. Each of the steps before finalization, I've addressed in those 5 other sessions that Jason mentioned. If you missed any of those, and they are available through Knowledgeable Aging website. If you go to their website and you click on the About tab, and you go down to my name, M. Jane Markley, you'll find the entire list of other programs that I've taught, and soon you'll find this one up there as well. So if you need to go and refresh your memory, or you weren't able to go to any of those and you need to, that's a good place to go. So now that you've gotten all this stuff together and your mind is made up and you've decided how you want to progress, you need a document. Now, if you haven't already chosen a tool, many people choose a tool as they go through the process of developing their advanced directive, because sometimes it helps them formulate their opinions and it helps drive all the direction that they're going in. But some people don't, and that's fine. There isn't a must-do on this one at all. So you choose a tool. There's a state tool. Every state in the union has their own tool. It is important that you're aware of that. It is not the only document that can be used. There's also 5 wishes, the living will with a heart and soul, that is used throughout the country, and about 46 states have approved its use through their legislative process. But it is actually used in all 50 states, as is my directive. Now, both 5 wishes and my directive have electronic capability, so you can do them online. My directive has only electronic, and so it's important that, you know, a lot of the youngsters really prefer to use that. And yes, remember, youngsters are doing this too, 18 years of age and older. So my directives is a good option. And then there are other forms. Different hospitals have different forms. Different religions have different forms. As I say, it doesn't matter. It's the one that's most comfortable for you to use. And my comment to everybody is, I don't care which form you use. I care that you complete a form, that you do this, whatever format you choose to do it. So this will be the formal completion of your directive. Then you can have it witnessed. This is why you don't need a lawyer. It does not require a lawyer's activity, attorney's activity. It can be done by an attorney or a lawyer, but it doesn't have to be. You just need to find 2 witnesses to sign it for you, and they're signing only that they recognize that you are the person signing your document. That's important to note. There is no reason for them to know what is inside the document. You're perfectly free to share that if you want to, but for them to sign the document, they do not have to read it. They just have to affirm that your signature is your signature. So make sure that's done. Now, I mentioned notarization here, and that's that there are 4 states in the union that require notarization. There are North Carolina, South Carolina, Missouri, and West Virginia. All the others, it's purely just two witnesses who get to sign it. And they can be your next door neighbor. I mean, that's how I've done it with many people during COVID, over the backyard fence. I'm signing this document, see the document, watch me sign it, and then pass the papers over and have them sign it. It's worked very well, and it's perfectly legal. So then the important thing next is to make copies. A copy is just as good as an original, okay? So you don't have to worry about having the original copy with you. Any copy is adequate for the physicians, for the healthcare world, for anybody to read and review. So don't worry about trying to get notarized copies of your original documents, which people get tied up with, and not necessary. So who gets a copy? Your healthcare agent, obviously. All 3 of those healthcare agents need to get a copy. Your doctor gets a copy. The healthcare system, a lot of people say, well, I don't have a particular doctor. I go to Kaiser, for example. Well, Kaiser has a wonderful mechanism where they can take in your document and file it within their system. Family, friends, anyone you've spoken to about what it is that you want, even your next door neighbor, if they're the person who's going to come to you and help you when you go to the emergency room, they need a copy, and you need to have talked to them about this. So it's important that you get this disseminated out to all the right people. I do mention your attorney. Now, it's good for them to have this on file. Your religious leader, whomever. It's important that anyone who might be involved in caring for you or supporting you during your healthcare visit have a copy. There is a way in Maryland to share this with all the hospitals in Maryland. I hope I don't take too long explaining this, but our goal in healthcare is eventually to have it so that a doctor sitting in a hospital when you're admitted can key in to your name and up comes M. Jane Markley, and there's my advanced care directive. And the state of Maryland has done an absolutely wonderful job of moving us in that direction. We're #1 in the country in doing this. And what we've done is also being used in West Virginia. It's also being used in the district and in other scattered areas throughout the country. It's into like 17 states now. It all depends on those jurisdictions' willingness to participate in the process. So it utilizes my directives as the tool to get the information to our hospitals. And that doesn't mean you have to fill out a my directives document. If you fill out a my directives document and you have an address in Maryland, it's automatically going to be uploaded into the system. Perfect. If you use a 5 wishes or a state document, then all you have to do is go into my directives and upload your document into my directives, and then it will automatically go to the system. And that system's name is CRISP, Chesapeake Regional Information Systems Portal for Patients. Yes, it's a hugely long name, but that's why we call it CRISP. If you're done with your advanced directive and you want to just put it in my directives, go ahead and do that. If you're not done yet, and you still have questions and you're not sure, go to Voice Your Choice. It will be on the list at the end of references. That's voiceyourchoice.org. And at that website, they will talk you through how to do your advanced directive. All the 5 sessions I've already done are included in that website. And they have in the top right-hand corner of the front page, go to my directives. And you can go directly into my directives from there, or you can go from their website. So that's an important thing for you to know, because this will allow anyone, no matter where you're admitted in the state of Maryland, to have access to your directive, whether you've forgotten to bring it in or whatever. However, I always tell people, don't forget to take this with you if you go to the hospital. My husband's going in for surgery tomorrow, and his advanced directive is suitably collected with all of his paperwork to go into the hospital with him tomorrow. I highly recommend that everybody have what's called a hospital go bag. The older you get, the more this becomes a reality. You know, if you've been seen by a bunch of different doctors, it's really, really helpful. It includes such things as a list of your medications that you're on, your most recent EKG, if you have an EKG, who your doctors are, who's been seeing you, what your diagnoses are, what medical diagnoses do you have. When someone arrives in the emergency room totally cold, just a human being arrives, the ER has no idea what you're on, what your background is, and people forget things. And so if you've got it all in a little folder that just goes with you to the hospital, and we call it a go bag because sometimes people actually have bags. They've got leather bags that they put by the front door, and so that they're available and ready to go with them when they go to the hospital. So that would be another place for your advanced directive to be filed. And then I've always told people, don't put your advanced directive in a lockbox, because nobody opens that till after you're dead, and that isn't going to be very helpful. If you have to put it in a box, put it in the glove box of your car. Again, you may end up in a motor vehicle accident and go to a hospital. Again, you don't have anything with you, but the EMTs will definitely look into your glove box to see if there's anything there. And if it's there, it can make a huge difference in the care that you receive when you get to the hospital. So now you've got it done. You've finished it. You've got it witnessed. You've made copies of it. You're not done yet. Sorry. I keep trying to tell you, this is an ongoing thing. It's great that you've gotten this far, but it's important to remember that this is not a stagnant document. Life changes. Your health care will change. Your life will change. It's important to make sure that you remember to update it. So this is the review section. And I say that the best thing for people to do is plan to review periodically. And I say yearly. And the reason I say yearly is put it into a habit pattern. Put it on your calendar to happen every year on this date, whatever this date is. It can be your birthday, it could be a holiday, it could be National Healthcare Decisions Day, which, by the way, occurs on the 16th of April, the day after. Taxes. What goes together? Benjamin Franklin told us, death and taxes. So if you put the two together, if most people don't forget to do their taxes. We're beating pretty bloody to make sure we do our taxes. So why not add this to your tax routine I'm not saying you need to go through this whole drill again. I'm saying you need to look at what you've written, see if it's current. In other words, are all your people there? Do your people, are they still alive? I mean, have you gotten a new diagnosis? What's changed in the last year that might impact your decisions that you made when you wrote this originally? So put it on your calendar and review it periodically. When else should you review it? Well, there are 5 Ds that we affectionately, and Jason loves these because they're really indicative.
They're the best. They're the best, Jane.
It's really indicative of when you should think to do this. And that is if there's a decline in your health. If you get sicker, if you get sicker, you may find and learn more information out that says, oh, maybe I don't want to do what I thought I wanted to do before, or maybe now I do. It'll all depend on individual circumstances. If you have a change in your diagnoses, you all of a sudden find you're a type 2 diabetic. Well, that is going to have an impact on your health going forward. Whether that causes a need for your advanced directive to change, I don't know. Only you will know that. And so you need to make sure that you review it and ensure that you've covered all your bases. Death. Now, this is not your death. This is the death of a healthcare agent. You don't want to have less than 3 agents if you can avoid it. And we've found people who come in with an advanced directive and all 3 of their healthcare agents are no longer with us on this planet. And that's just, it's nigh unto exasperating because there is no one to talk to at that point. We do have your advanced directive, which is helpful, but it's always nice to have someone who you can communicate with and get to understand a little bit more about the person behind the document. So if one of your healthcare agents should die, become incapacitated, or be in the hospital more often than you are, then they should be taken off and a new person put in their place. Divorce. This one always catches people's breath because I know several people whose healthcare agent is actually their ex, their prior husband or wife. And it happens more often than you would imagine. When a divorce occurs, the best thing for you to do is do a new document. I'm not saying it has to change. What has to change is you need a new date on that document. You can't just pen and ink a change in the date on the original. You need to write up a new document. Since it doesn't cost you anything, it's probably just a matter of your time to make that happen. But that will assure people that you consciously made the decision to put that person as your healthcare agent, rather than, oh, in the throes of a divorce, it never got considered. So this will make it easier for people to do what you want done. And then finally is distance. They used to say decade, but I think decade's a far too long a time between reviews, and year doesn't have a D in it. So, but distance is important as well. It's possible in this day and age with all of our technology to go ahead and have someone who, for example, lives in Japan, maybe your son who's posted in Japan with the Army. Okay, that's doable. But the better part of valor is to have someone who is close, someone who can come to you and be available to you, either in the same town or at least on the same continent. Maybe they can fly in if need be. It's not a showstopper, but when the fan is being hit and things are going south, having someone close at hand really makes life a whole lot easier for everybody involved. This is my mantra. Have the conversation and give the gift. Hopefully, when you get to this point of doing the review and finalizing your document, you have already had that conversation with a number of people and have gotten a lot of information from them and given them a lot of information. And as I've said before, this is a gift. This is a gift you give to your loved ones, you give to yourself, but more so to those people who will be left holding the bag when something untoward occurs to you, and giving them the opportunity to know what you want and giving them the guidance that they need to make good decisions for you at the time. So pat yourself on the back that you've had this conversation. Remember, only 30% of the population out there has done this. 90% of the population says they should do this, but only about 30% has done it. You've given your gift to your friends, to your family, and oh, by the way, to us healthcare workers. There's nothing nicer than to get a sense of who the person is behind all those tubes and lines and gowns that you're wearing, particularly in the day of COVID. So, what questions do you all have? And what can I clarify for you? When we move on to questions, I will post the reference page for a number of websites that you can take a look at. I strongly recommend for those people who are still in the throes of working through their process, Hard Choices for Loving People by Hank Dunn. It's a layman's book that just helps guide your decision making and gives you things to think about. But there's a lot there. There's Voice Your Choice, where you can go load up your My Directives and any other healthcare directive that you've completed can be loaded there and will be available in Maryland to your healthcare organization, provided you've put a Maryland address in. Some people who live in 2 states put the other state in, and the next thing you know, it isn't available in Maryland. So that's an important thing to think about. Okay, over to you, Jason.
All right, thank you, Jane. As you can imagine, we thank you for leaving some time here. We got lots of questions. First question is, I know you had mentioned a lot of the advanced directives can be done electronically, but do hospitals or attorneys, do any of them require an original advanced directive? No.
No one is requiring original advanced directives.
Okay. Do advanced directives expire?
No, they don't. The longer there is between times of, when you've got one that's 20 years old, it's still valid unless there's a new one that's been done in the interim, and that's always and in our world, what you ask for is, has there anything updated since then? But no, they do not expire.
So Jane, you had talked about the witnesses and notaries. So I know it varies, I assume it varies from state to state. Is that correct? As far as
just those 4 states require notaries. The rest of the states all just require the 2 witnesses.
Okay, so if somebody makes a change, maybe one of the 5Ds, so at that point, should they get new notaries or witness at that time as well? Or does it kind of, the ones they had from the original, is that still in play?
No, what you need to do is if it becomes apparent that you need to make a change in your document, you need to get a brand new document and start from scratch. This doesn't negate all the work that you've done in the conversations that you've had, but it provides you with a new, there cannot be any pen and ink changes on the document. So even if you change your address, it's important that all you have to do is go get another document, fill it out, find two neighbors to sign it over the backyard fence, and you're done. And then and it's critical thing that I haven't mentioned, and I'm remiss at not mentioning, is the fact that when you give them out to your friends, loved ones, docs, etc., make a list of who you gave a copy to, so that when something happens and you choose to update, i.e. do a new one with a new date on it, you can go ahead and send copies to all the original people that you sent the original one to, so that they are given, and tell them to get rid of the old one, here's the new one. That's why you can't make pen and ink changes.
Yeah. Is it safe to assume, Jane, that you have to be persistent in making sure that, let's just say you give your advance directive to your doctor or your healthcare system, and then you switch, maybe you move and go to a new healthcare system. You have to be persistent and follow up to make sure that this advance directive follows you, right? Because it may not be in your medical records, right? I mean, we can't just assume.
Never assume that it's there. Always have one with you. I'd say always have two with you, so you could give one to them and you have your own. But now that we have this new work through CRISP, if they're put into my directives, they should be there. And I would encourage you, if you've done it and you've loaded it into CRISP, into my directives, the next time you're in the hospital, ask your doctor if they can find it.
Very good.
We have to educate the physicians and the healthcare staff as well, which is all part of our job in Maryland, is making sure that everybody knows this is there, not just the patients who need to fill the documents out, but the healthcare team to make sure they know how to access it and where it is within the system. But it's there.
Yeah. Somebody asked, can a doctor refuse to comply with the wishes that I stated in my advance directive?
Okay. This is always one of the big questions. Depends on what the question is. I mean, what is it that they're not complying with? They cannot be forced to do things that go against their personal beliefs. A good example is in this day and age, abortions. If you go to a doctor and say, I want an abortion, who's a GYN guy, and he says, well, I'm sorry, I don't believe in doing them, then he or she is responsible for finding someone who will care for you in the manner to which you wish to be cared for. If something is really for example, another good example is in Maryland, MAID, or medical aid in dying, is not legal. It's legal in the district, but it is not legal here. And if you put in your living will that you want to be helped to die by any mechanism, they would not be able to do that in the state of Maryland. What they would do is they would say, okay, here are your options. This is what can be offered to you, but I can't do it. So yes, most of the time they need to follow it, but if it goes against the law or it goes against their personal beliefs, then what they need to do is find another avenue for you to move forward to get the care that you desire.
Well, I think one of the big takeaways, Jane, and you've mentioned this multiple times in our times together, our webinars, is that this is why you should have the conversation with your healthcare agent or not your doctor, right? And say, this is my advance directives. Am I going to have a problem, right? Don't be blindsided down the road. If you're upfront with it, you can hopefully mitigate any issues that might present themselves down the road.
Absolutely, absolutely. The more you let your desires and preferences be known, the easier it is going to be for everyone going forward. People don't want to not follow what you want done. And yes, there are cases where people haven't followed, but it's important that the communication is meted out as early as possible. And that's why I talk so much about having the conversation.
Yeah. So somebody asked, they said, can I override the decision of my healthcare proxy or my advance directive?
As long as you are copacetic, in other words, you're up, round, and fine, this document doesn't go into effect unless you've said, I want it to go into effect before, while I still can speak for myself. As long as you can speak for yourself, you can say, oh, I made a big mistake with that. I don't want that anymore. And then the document loses its powers. Yeah.
So last question, Jane, and this is somebody's asking. It's funny. I think in our second webinar we talked about this, and the question says, if I just turned 18, I know you had said, look, you should think about getting your advanced directive once you turn 18, and they asked, well, if everything is good now and my life is going to change, why should I even consider an advanced directive at such a young age?
Do you have a driver's license? Be my first question. Do you go out on the Beltway?
Yeah.
My second question. If you do either of those things, you need one of these. Now, yes, you're fine and healthy, and that's why 18-year-olds rarely think about this. But if we look back on the history of advanced directives, the 3 women who needed an advanced directive and who precipitated all the work that's been done in the last 30 years on advanced directives, all 3 of those women were under 30 when something untoward occurred to them. Yeah. A motor vehicle accident, an overdose, whatever it was. They were under 30. Those are not necessarily predictable events. No, you don't have cancer now. No, you don't have, pulmonary edema and all the other horrible things that occur as you age and have medical issues. But this is for when a crisis occurs, whatever that medical crisis is, whether it's that your head's been bashed in by a windshield, or you got run over by a truck, or whatever. It needs to be in play. The other thing that's important for 18-year-olds to know, and I say this more to their parents than I sometimes do to the 18-year-olds, and that is, if you're going away to work or going away to school of any nature, and you're going to be out there kind of on your own, living by yourself, living out in the world. You're 18, you're of majority. If you're out there doing that, and something does happen to you, they don't have to call your parents. Your family may never know that you're in the hospital for a week or 2, because there is no requirement. And so with an advanced directive in place, they are mandated to follow up and get to the person who can speak for you. And so it's important to have this document on you and available for your family to know what's going on.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jane, for all of your time and experience and sharing all of this wonderful knowledge, all 6 webinars. How can people find you?
People can find me at Jane at MJMarkley.com. And that's my website as well, www.mjmarkley.com.
Thank you, Jane. As far as Knowledgeable Aging, you can go to our website, knowledgeableaging.com. You can see all of our upcoming and archive webinars. You can also go to YouTube, type in Knowledgeable Aging. We try to update that a couple times per week. We encourage you to subscribe. If podcasts are your thing, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Tunes, etc. Until next time, I'm your host, Jason Kotar, and this is Knowledgeable Aging.